everybody. Welcome to Tea Time. I'm so glad you're joining me tonight. I'm going to talk about my weekend really, really quick and then get to my guests because you know my hour goes fast. Friday night, just chilled, not much. Saturday, how boring, laundry. And Sunday, you ever hear of a drive-by? Well, Sunday, I had a drive-by baby shower in Hicksville for my cousin Kim. A lot of safe social distancing, and it was great seeing her prego. And I want to wish her well because she's due in a couple of weeks. That was my weekend, and I want to say happy first Spring Monday because it's the first Monday in spring, and I'm wearing my little floral top going on, and I'm excited that the weather's getting nicer. All right, so listen, let's get to it because I've been waiting for this man for a long time, and I met him a long time ago. Jackie, the Joke Man Martling is in the house. He's a comedian, actor, author, writer, radio personality. The man has done it all. Amazing career. So let's get to it now. Hey, Jackie, how's it going?
Well, hello. So if I was here a week later, your blouse would be even lower? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
I like that. I like that. You look good. You look sexy. You look sexy.
Thank you. And you look fabulous too.
I told you when I came on just before, you said you look fabulous.
You do.
And I stopped you because I've been telling jokes my whole life, and I read a joke when I was a little kid and I didn't get it. But now, since I know the joke for the last 70 years, it gets me crazy every time somebody says you look good or you look fabulous. Because when I was a little kid, the joke was the 3 stages of man are youth, middle age, and you look good, which means you're not dead yet. So I know you mean it as a compliment, but Bafangul.
Just means every time I see you, first of all, I don't know, maybe it's me, but I think we're all aging beautifully as we mature, as we get older. I think I feel like we get better looking as we get older, seriously. And you always have that electric and what's the word? Smile that it's contagious. You have this contagious smile.
No, I'm not contagious. I've given people the crabs. But nothing worse than the crabs.
But your smile and your laugh is so contagious, and
thank you. I laugh so everybody else will laugh. That's all I care about is making people laugh, and nothing else matters to me. It's a little sad, but it's a little fun at the same time. If I make a crowd of 700 people laugh, I feel good. But if I make the guy behind the deli counter laugh, it feels good too. So
right.
it's all the same crap,
It does. And listen, a lot of people know so much about you because you've been in this industry for so long. Everyone could Google everything. But, for people who have been under a rock for a while, I just want to just go through just a little bit of a little something. You're originally a Long Island boy. You grew up here on the North Shore. You went to Oyster Bay High School, which as a kid growing up in Queens, I always went to Oyster Bay Beach. My mother would drive out to Oyster Bay Beach. We loved it. We'd have so much fun on the beach. And then you were very active in school, right? You did school plays. You were a gymnast.
Yeah, all that stuff. I was fun. I drank too much, but I was the head busboy of a country club, and I was on the soccer team, and I was a pole vaulter, and I was a gymnast, we started a band in 9th grade. So I was a very busy boy all during high school, and it was just so much fun. My whole life, when I hear somebody say, well, not so much anymore, but oh man, I hated high school. High school sucked. It was I'm like, what planet are you from? God. Howard Stern used to scream, oh, Jack, you peaked too soon. I said, no, I didn't peak too soon. I peaked soon and stayed there. I've been having a good time for a long time. Sometimes I'm miserable, but what are you going to do?
Well, you and I originally met back, I think, in the early 90s at Jimmy's Comedy Alley in Bayside.
I love that joint, man. Poor Linda's long gone, but I love Linda and Jimmy. There was like 400 people packed in. I got so many photos of the whole world used to come to see me there. That was one of those places where I turned right on Bell Boulevard and just could not for the life of me get a parking spot. But I loved it because that meant that the place was packed. When you're a comedian, if you go to a club and you can find a parking spot, you're in trouble. But I mean, I used to have to park like a mile away from Jimmy's Comedy Alley.
It's true.
Oh.
It's true. I grew up in Bayside, and I was able to walk there, and I just loved hanging out there. I loved meeting the comedians, doing shows. Lisa Narson, who I'm hoping is watching, as you know, worked there, and she tried to hook me up with as many people as she could back then. It was just good times, just really, really fun times.
I remember Lisa, and I remember Linda, and I know there was a bunch more people. Jimmy was Linda's father, and was that also her brother was also named Jimmy, right?
Yeah. I think they both were. Yeah.
They
Just good
were
times,
great.
just good times, just good fun times. I met you
And
there.
those were in the days before we were really huge. So I was still working. Like, I'd work Jimmy's Comedy Alley on a Thursday and get so drunk, and then I'd have to be in my seat the next morning at 6 o'clock. Like, I'd drive all the way home to Bayville and then all the way back, because it wasn't worth trying to get a hotel room. And it's wild days.
You
did
a lot of driving in those days. Do you still have a Volvo?
I've had a Volvo since it was the first time I ever had a new car. I bought a brand new Volvo, and then I got a gig at the Raleigh Hotel in the Catskills, and on the Cross Bronx Expressway, a guy stopped short, and I crashed into him, and the guy behind me crashed into me and totaled my car. And I stepped out of it and didn't even have a sore neck. And I said, you know what? I will never drive anything but a Volvo. And I've never driven anything but a Volvo since, because any other car, I would have been dead. And I didn't even have a sore neck. It was unbelievable. So, yes.
So after...
See, I never answered with one word. The question was, you still drive a Volvo? I guess the answer was yes. What do I care? Hey, now, are we being totally clean, or is this wild? Or what's? I didn't ask you. What's the?
You look clean, because if it does go out to other places, I'd like everyone to see it. I mean, we can get a little dirty. I'm going to tell you my dirtiest joke. We'll go there. But after high school, you actually went to college in Michigan, and you majored in what? What did you major in?
I went to Michigan State University, and I majored in mechanical engineering.
Wow.
Because with no intention of ever doing it, but I was very smart in calculus and science, and I knew if I didn't take a difficult major, I knew I would have got drunk and flunked out. So I took a really difficult major, and it took me 5 years. Well, it took me 5 years to graduate, because I was in college in the late 60s. So of course I dropped out in the spring term in 1969, and but it was just incredible. And I'm a mechanical engineer in 1971, Michigan State University. That always throws people. In my act, I always say that I used my diploma to roll pot, which is true.
Oh my God! All right, so listen. So here's the $1 million question. What made you
8 inches? That's the answer to the million. 8 inches, which is a little bit too wide for a lot of women.
Now I can sleep tonight. I'm glad you told me that. Woo!
All right, good.
Yes.
What's the $1 million question?
Well, I want to know what exactly got you into comedy, and where was your very first gig?
I never got into comedy. I had no designs on ever being a comedian. I had no designs on ever being on the radio. I started playing rock and roll at 9th grade to meet broads. My buddy said, hey, I'll teach you 4 chords, and we can have a band, and we can meet girls. And that developed into smoking pot and getting drunk. And then I went to college and played in bands all through college, and then came home and played in a band all through the 70s on Long Island. We drove around Long Island in a 1955 bright yellow Cadillac hearse. And in 1978, the band broke up. And the only thing I knew was that I was never going to get a straight job. And from all the years of telling jokes and exchanging jokes, I was always the last guy standing. I already knew every joke in the world by the 70s. Wow. I said, you know what, I'll just try telling these jokes on stage. I already was telling them when I played my guitar. So I decided, I went from being a guitar player who told jokes,
right,
to being a joke teller who played the guitar. So the whole first year I was in comedy, I had a ponytail and played the guitar in my act.
Wow.
And I just started telling jokes, and each month I made more than the month before, and made a little bit more, and and I learned how to make records because I worked in a recording studio. So I made a comedy album. I had a comedy album in the days when nobody had comedy albums except for the Bill Cosby's and the Robert Kleins. People didn't have their own comedy album. But I knew how to do it. So I made an album, and I made another one, and made another one. Yeah. They were horrible. And, I sold them at my gigs, and it was really fun. And the guys made fun of me. I was the first guy selling merch at the door.
Yes.
I was 20 years before anybody else did it. And
you were ahead of your time.
Well, the guys, their comics would make fun of me, like what a twerp I was. Then all of a sudden they go, wait a minute. We each made $40, but he made an extra $75 selling his stupid albums. All of a sudden they realized maybe he's not so stupid. And by 1982, I had 3 comedy albums. Wow. And I heard about this guy that was coming to New York, and I sent my 3 comedy albums to this disc jockey that was coming to New York. And a couple of months later, Howard Stern called me up, and we went to Pluto. There was no designs on that. I'd get on the radio to talk about the comedy shows I was promoting. I started promoting Governor's Comedy Shop, and I put out my albums.
Right.
But I never thought, I was on WBAB all the time in the morning. Yeah. They'd call me up, and I'd tell jokes that were a little bit too dirty, and they, it really helped. My joke line, which is still going, 516-922-WINE, got so popular. And then Rick Dees in California got a hold of that. And he told everybody that 516-922-9463, he told his entire national audience that was Tom Selleck's home phone number. So the thing went berserk. And then Howard called, and I went and I sat down with Howard and Robin and Fred. And at the end of the day, he said, man, you're a lot of fun. Why don't you come back next week? So I came back once a week for 3 years.
Right. On a Tuesday, right? It was a Tuesday. You went on
a Tuesday? On a Tuesday, yep. And then he went to mornings, and I became a regular part of the cast. And the whole time I'm slipping them notes. And we literally went to Pluto. Like nobody knew, we're on in 2 markets, and then 5, and then 10, and then 20, and then I think it was 55 when I left there.
It's amazing. It's just amazing. So wait, I want to back up a little bit, because you said that you used to play, right? And then after you would tell jokes. But you were at my father's place playing, and then these 3 guys, I think named Eddie Murphy, Rob Bartlett, and Bob Nelson, would get up and do comedy.
The owner of my father's place, a guy named Michael Epstein, and him and this guy, John DeBella, which is so funny because years later, he wound up being nose to nose with Howard. Like it was a world war between in Philadelphia, between Howard and John DeBella. And meanwhile, I knew him from 10 years earlier. Epi had me and John DeBella hosting a thing called Long Island Ha Ha, which was the local Long Island comedians, and a really oddball a kind of gangster promoter named King Broder put together Eddie Murphy and Bob Nelson and Rob Bartlett, and called them the identical triplets, the joke being that Eddie was black. In fact, they were such a big hit that Broder tried to make lightning strike twice, and he got me and these 2 monstrous guys. There was a comedian named Bob Woods, who weighed about 300 pounds, and Dave Hawthorne, who was about 6'3".
Wow.
And the 3 of us, he put us together. So we spent 2 drunken days trying to come up with a name for us, and we were the Rolling Clones. But of course, we didn't do quite as well as Murphy. Pretty soon Murphy bailed out from them, and he got the Pluto long before the Howard Stern show.
But is it true, Jackie? Is it true that when you were trying to put out your second album, and when you were, Eddie wanted to do that? He came to you and said, hey, you want to do my album?
No, well, it was very happenstance. I recorded my first album before there was such thing as a comedy club at a bar restaurant called Cinnamon in Huntington.
Yes.
And then Richie Minervini, who's still a very dear friend of mine, him and his brother and another guy opened up the East Side Comedy Club. So I was making my second album, at the East Side Comedy Club, and the microphones were hanging there, and I'm getting ready, and we're standing in the back of the room, and Eddie came up and said, "Jack, you make another album? I want to have an album." And I said, "I'm too busy, Eddie." I have tape of every back in those days except Eddie. I honestly, it wasn't that he wasn't funny. It just, it didn't make an impression on me,
But Jackie, is it
Which
true that
it makes no sense. The audience loved them,
Is it true that you recorded every show you did at Cinnamon?
I recorded every show I did forever. I mean, you wouldn't believe the amount. I don't know how many of these tapes still work, but I've got 3/4-inch tapes and 1/2-inch tapes and 1/4-inch tapes and cassettes and double speed cassettes.
Wow.
But I recorded at Cinnamon with 2 crowd microphones, and I had my amplifier was rigged so there was an output of the sound, and I recorded it into a cassette player, a little cassette player, and one side was my vocal, and the other side, it was stereo. So the left side was me, and the right side were the crowd microphones. And I would bring home the cassette and transfer it onto what's called a reel-to-reel tape.
Yes.
And edit it with a razor blade, and that's how I made my records. And that's how I made my records all the way up. My first 2 CDs, I was still using reel-to-reel tape and a razor blade. And then all of a sudden, you could do it on a computer. It's hard to believe, you could do 17 different things on the computer and back up and change your mind 17 times. With the razor blade. You did it, and then you took a little piece of tape and put it down there. And if you changed your mind, that was a pain in the ass to turn around. So,
measure twice, cut once. That's for sure.
Absolutely. But it was so much fun,
Oh
and I'm doing this in the attic of my mother's house,
Yes, the attic of your mother's house. Listen, we have to take a quick break. Don't go away. More with Jackie the Joke Man when we come back. We'll be right back. So where do you want to go tonight?
Are you bored?
Oh my God.
Hold on tight. We're going to Costas.
Costas Tavern is located at 487 Newbridge Road in East Meadow. Their number's 516-557-2222. Kristen Tinsley is the Divine Comedian, tarot reads, and spiritual medium. Please subscribe to her YouTube channel, The Divine Comedian. That's D-I-V-I-N-E, Comedian, F-E-M-E-D-I-A-N. Check it out and let her tell you what your future holds. Val's Crafty Creations. Are you looking for something personalized? She's the one to do it. She's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. Check it out. Val's Crafty Creations. From t-shirts, stemware, houseware. She does it all for any occasion. Val's Crafty Creations.
Well, hi there, Teresa. It's John York from General Hospital. I am just checking in because apparently you have a great talk show called Tea Time on Strong Island TV. I want you to have continued great success and have a lot of fun. It sounds like you're having a lot of fun, and that's pretty much the key to everything, isn't it? So continued success. I'm proud of you. Have a great day, Teresa. Bye.
Hey everybody, welcome back.
Are we on?
We're on. Listen, I want to thank my sponsors there. I want to thank John York from General Hospital mentioning Tea Time. That means a lot to me. Hit my girl up, Kristen Tinsley, for a reading. She's amazing. And Val's Crafty Creations. Check all her stuff out on Etsy. Listen, I want to give shout out to Carol. Awaska is watching. Kristen Tinsley, my girl's watching. Paul is watching. I also want to say hello to Bruno, and also this band is giving you a shout out. Mach 5 is giving you a shout out. Everyone's loving
Those guys are unbelievable.
Yes, they are. Everybody, please like the show. Please share it. I'm with Jackie. I'm just so excited you're here. But I want to back up a little bit because you mentioned Rick Dees, and Rick originally gave you the nickname the Joke Man, didn't he?
Well, what happened was there was a great story because all my stories along way back in the early 80s. It cost money to make long distance phone calls, and they were very expensive. And there were people who there were credit card numbers. They were like 12 or 15 digits long. And you used the credit card number to make long distance calls. And there was a whole group of people in the country that used to steal those numbers and pass them around. And they knew all the wacky numbers around the country for the seances and the weather and whatever. And they got a hold of my joke line and gave it to Rick Dees. And I guess he had started calling and putting the jokes on his show in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And then he started putting them on his shows. He actually put his top 40 on LPs, wax LPs, and mailed them out to all the different stations around the country. And one day my sister had been in Minnesota, and she said, "Hey, we heard 922 Wine on the radio." I said, "That's kind of cool." And she told me the joke. I said, "That's not possible. That joke was on a couple of weeks ago." And then my friend Bill was down in Jersey, and he said, "I heard 922 Wine on the radio," and he told me the joke. I said, "That joke was on weeks ago." What happened was they were listening on Saturday to Rick Dees Countdown, and Rick had stored up some jokes and put them on the weekly countdown. Bill was down in Jersey listening to Z100 on a Saturday. But as you had to be around back then, because all of a sudden cable TV hit and HBO hit, and all of a sudden the whole world completely changed. Now you're sitting in your room, in your living room, and there's bare boobs on the TV screen. It's a different world, and the world started to loosen up. So I started making the jokes on 922 Wine, dirtier and dirtier. And one day the phone rang, was Rick Dees. He said, "Jackie, I've been stealing your jokes, but giving you credit, but the jokes are too dirty now. Can you do some jokes especially for me?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "All right, I'll say that you're a dentist and you record these jokes in your closet." I said, "You're an idiot. How's that help me?" He said, "Well, let me think about it." And the next day he called me up and says, "How's this sound? You're Jackie the Joke Man, the wild man from New York that knows every joke." I said, "Well, you didn't invent that. That's exactly what I am." And I said, "Sold." And from that point on, I've been the Joke Man. And I was already working for the Howard Stern show, so people assumed that he named me the Joke Man, but he didn't, It was funny, and also because it was dirty, when I first started on the Stern show, he referred to me as Jackie 922 Wine Martling. And after 2 weeks, he called me up and he said, "I got some bad news." I thought, well, it was fun being on the radio. What the hell? And the reason he was calling was they got complaints because people were calling 922 Wine and it was dirty. He said, "I can't promote 922 Wine anymore." I said, "But I'm still coming on the show." And he said, "Of course." I said, "Well, please, who cares, So that's when I went from being Jackie 922 Wine Martling to Jackie the Joke Man Martling, which is so fun. You're just so goofy,
Listen, I want to ask you another question. When you first started in comedy, early in your career, you hooked up with Rodney Dangerfield and you actually spent 2 weeks with him.
That was before I was a comic. I was just starting out, and that same guy Richie Minervini that opened the East Side Comedy Club used to come and stay with me and my girlfriend at my grandmother's house. My grandmother had passed away, so I had a place to crash.
Right.
And we were all doing whatever we could to one up each other because we all lied about everything because we were terrible. And he walked in one day and said, "Hey, I was at Rodney Dangerfield's club and he loved me and he's going to put me on TV. Yak, 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 yak." And I said, "Oh man." And I got so jealous and I sat down and took every joke I could think of and put it into Rodney Dangerfield's format,
Right.
and typed up 6 pages of jokes with carbon copy and folded it up and put it in an envelope. And next time Richie walked in, I said, "Give these to your friend Rodney." And he said, "Oh man," he said, "I didn't meet Rodney." He said, he didn't even come in. I didn't get on stage there. I'm like, "You piece of crap, man." And he pulled the matchbook out of his pocket and he said, "I swear I was there." And he had the matchbook with the address, and I already had the envelope for Rodney, so I just wrote the address on and put it in the mail. I had nothing to lose. And 2 days later, the phone rang. Hello, who is this? It's Rodney. Rodney who? Oh, I knew you were freaking funny. I knew you were funny. Some funny stuff here. He bought 4 jokes. I went to meet him at Westbury Music Fair, and I had a ponytail and torn blue jeans and a beautiful young girlfriend. He's like, oh, who's the broad? Look, she's beautiful. Well, what's the hair, the blue jeans? Hey, you want a piece of fruit? She's pretty. Funny jokes here. A lot of funny. 2 bag of funny. She's beautiful. Oh, you want some fruit? Hey, what's with the hair? And he,
Yeah.
and that was it. And then a couple of years later, he wound up taking me with him to Fort Lauderdale and then to Las Vegas. And it was spectacular. Richie Tinkin recently passed away. Do you know who that was?
Yeah.
Richie Tinkin owned the comic strip, and the comic strip in Fort Lauderdale had just opened up, and I'd never worked there. And I dragged Rodney and a guy named Louis Nye, who was on the old Steve Allen show in the late 50s. And we walked into the comic strip, and Paul Reiser and Larry Miller and Bob Nelson, Peter Bales, Glenn Hirsch, Dennis Wolfberg, they were all standing there. And I walk in with Rodney, and their heads exploded. And then Louis Nye, who's like a god, is behind him, and like, how the hell did you pull this off? And
Wow.
so that endeared me to Richie Tinkin for his whole life, because Rodney's a comic. So anytime he was in Fort Lauderdale, he'd find his way to the club and go up and do 10 minutes because that's in his DNA, So that was fun. It was wild.
Now, how much did he actually write himself, and how much did he actually?
he like everybody, everything is a patchwork quilt. It really is. And most people don't know that. Most people don't care. Like when Johnny Carson was up there, if you know anything, you know that the cue cards were lined up in front of the audience. So if you know about comedy, you can actually watch Johnny looking over here, then looking over here, then looking over here.
Right.
But who cares? No, he's funny. People are there to laugh. They don't care where the jokes came from. Same with Rodney. He wrote a lot of that stuff, but a lot of stuff was the right joke in the right place is everything. It can be the oldest thing in the world. If it's in the right place at the right time, you're not going to write a better joke for a situation than one that's already been written. It just doesn't happen. And it just didn't matter. But when people didn't know that, like Howard Stern, those guys all gave me a hard time because, the concept of, like Rodney needs help. It's not that he needs help. People have writers. They always have, they always will.
Yeah, so did Bob Hope. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that had writers. But
well, you know what happened was in the 40s, like Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, they'd be doing a radio show, and during the commercial break, their writers would be scurrying, trying to come up with stuff for the guys to use when they came back on the air. Meanwhile, when I was with Howard, I was writing it as we went along. Which was unheard of. It was a whole new thing. And that's what, that's part of the reason we went to the moon, because he had his sense of humor, my sense of humor, Fred's sense of humor. And it was he was the cauldron of all these, not just 3 senses of humor, but completely different ways of looking at things. You didn't know whether we were going to go into the toilet or go into kindergarten or go into a whorehouse. It was just spectacular fun.
Really, like, off the cuff improv writing. I mean, you just wrote whatever came. It was like part of improv, but it was just writing.
Which is crazy because my entire act is the oldest jokes in the book because they're the funniest. And I tell old jokes and laugh at them. But on the Howard Stern show, I very rarely gave him a joke. They were all jokes, but they were lines that, it's like if you were having a conversation with your husband and I was sitting there, and instead of me saying something funny, I wrote it down and let your husband say it. Right. So he's a little funnier. That's all. It's a very simple process.
You gave him the tagline. That's what you did.
Or a total new way to go, or a different avenue. There's as many different things as you could think of,
So you send out your album to a lot of people, including Stern, and he likes what he heard. He invites you in. You have a meeting with him. The next thing you know, you're there every Tuesday.
No meeting. I just walked in and sat in. They were on the air. I walked in. It was Howard and Robin and Fred, and I sat down and we fooled around. And then I came back every Tuesday for 3 years.
Every Tuesday, and then that was it. And then they said, "That's it. We want you here all the time."
Well, he got fired from NBC. Then he got rehired at K-Rock, and then he went to mornings. He said, I want you here 2 days a week. And I was there 2 days a week, but he was much funnier on the days that I was there because he had somebody writing jokes for him. So I went from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 days in a heartbeat, you know.
And a lot of people, Jackie, they don't know. They don't know that you were the I mean, Stern was funny, but you made him funnier. Like you said, you were passing along.
Listen, I'll tell people, if you're a world-class sprinter, the fastest sprinter in the world, you're still going to be a little faster if there's wind at your back.
Absolutely.
And that little bit of extra speed, if you're a world-class sprinter, can be the difference between winning the gold medal and setting a world record. You know, he was plenty funny. He didn't need me to be funny.
Right.
But it certainly made him funnier. And there were, back then it was so hardly anybody knew. And it's so funny because your husband poked his nose in and said he was a friend of Leslie West, that he opened for Leslie West. Well, one day the phone rang and Gary came in and said, hey, Howard, the guy on the phone said his name's Leslie West. I don't know. And Howard picked up the phone and Leslie started talking. I said, I know that that's really him. It's definitely really him. And he came on the show and Howard was breaking balls with him. And Leslie had just been in a movie called the Pink something, some movie with Tom Hanks, but he had a role. And for the role, he got a brand new set, all of his choppers, a brand new set of teeth.
Right.
But he also was a heroin addict and a coke addict, and you know he was a madman. And so he came in and he told Howard the story, and then I wrote the note, and Howard said, you know, Robin, Leslie gets addicted to everything. He just spent $10,000 on new teeth, and now he wants more teeth. And we all went hysterical. And Leslie said, so that's where it comes from. Jackie's writing this stuff. That's where the jokes are coming from. And I thought, wow, now the whole world's going to know. Nobody knew. Nobody was listening. Nobody was paying attention. I thought he let the cat out of the bag, you know, but no.
Yeah. But
it was great.
Listen, you wrote this book. It's called The Joke Man, Bow to Stern. Okay. And I read this book twice, Jackie, because
thank you. Everybody that bothers to read it seems to like it.
you have to get this book because in this book, and I don't want to give a lot away, but I want to say how I appreciate you being so brutally honest and your authenticity and really putting yourself out there. And I have to say right now, I'm loving the picture with your bare ass. Okay, it's very pale, but I'm loving that picture.
That's why I did it. I did it for you. And I'm glad you like it. A lot of people
Love it.
people really enjoyed the book, and I actually have enough for a whole nother book sitting in my computer. I'll send you some new chapters. But before you ask me about a documentary, they finished doing the documentary on me about a month ago, but there's no place to take it out. We want to take it to film festivals, but it's called Joke Man, and it's so much fun. It's got Mark Cuban, Willie Nelson, Penn Jillette, you know, Artie Lang, the whole, and it's fun and it's funny and it's, you know, it's the story. It's the same old story, you know.
In this book, you're very honest. It starts out actually with you maybe being related to the Roosevelts. I'm not going to won't give too much away. And also, what was it? Your mom in here doesn't get pissed off while she's being pissed on. So everyone really needs to read that too, because I think
every Stern fan in the world has heard that story 30 times, but it's a great story and it's a true story, you know.
But that's what I love about the book. It's just so honest. It's so brutally honest.
Thanks.
We're going to take one last commercial break. I'm not doing 3. Usually I do 3. We're only doing 2. Let's go to commercial. When we come back, it's all about Jackie. Don't go away. We'll be right back. So where do you want to go tonight?
Why don't we go to Coasters?
Oh, cool. I heard it's a great place. Let's check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Oh my God.
Coasters Tavern. located at 487 New Bridge Road in East Meadow. Their number's 516-557-2222. Kristen Tinsley is the Divine Comedian, tarot reads, and spiritual medium. Please subscribe to her YouTube channel, The Divine Comedian. That's D-I-V-I-N-E, Comedian, F-E-M-E-D-I-A-N. Check it out and let her tell you what your future holds. Val's Crafty Creations. Are you looking for something personalized? She's the one to do it. She's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. Check it out. Val's Crafty Creations. From t-shirts, stemware, houseware. She does it all for any occasion. Val's Crafty Creations.
How you doing? It's Sal the Voice Valentinetti. Why are you watching me? You should be watching Teresa Canastraci, Tea Time with Teresa Canastraci Farrell. And make sure you follow Teresa on Facebook, Tea Time with Teresa Canastraci Farrell. We'll see you there.
I love the way you say my name. I love it. Hey, welcome back. I'm with Jackie the Joke Man Martling, and we're talking about everything and anything from the beginning of his career to his book, which everyone has to get. This is a great read, I laughed, I cried. It's amazing. And then the other one is Jackie the Joke Man Martling's disgusting, dirty joke book. And yes,
You know, on the back of that, on the back of my autobiography
yes.
is a picture of my bare ass.
No, it's on the inside.
On the inside. Well, that picture on the inside is the cover of my newest joke book, which I don't have right here, but I'll did I send that? I don't think I sent that to you. I'll send you that.
Where was this taken? Was this taken in Oyster Bay Beach?
No, right in Bayville, right in front of my house.
Yes. Okay. Yes, because you're still on Long Island and you're never going to leave Long Island. You're a true Long Island boy.
I love Bayville. It's I live on the water. You know, the pandemic's just been horrible, but we live on the water and we eat well and we got great friends and we smoke some pot and, you know, and it's still hard. I can imagine what it's like for the rest of the world. It's just, but we're on our way out. Knock on wood, we're on our way out.
We are. So listen, when you were on Stern and you did that Cher parody,
that was so fun.
Well, the reason why I laughed even harder is because Rob Camilletti went to my high school.
Oh, that's great.
And I knew Rob.
That was not a turning point, but that was an important milestone in in my role on the show, our role on the show, because that must have been very early on, like 1986 or something. We had just recently gone to mornings. And after we got done with the show, we'd go in the office and Howard would sit there and eat his potato and turkey. And me and Fred would sit across from him and we would pitch ideas and he would write down what he liked. And we'd pitch an idea for a bit, like an I Love Lucy bit or this or that or the other, or a song parody. Mm-hmm. And Rob Camilletti and Cher became an item. So we got to do a song about this. So, of course, we're going to do I Got You, Babe, because that's the Sonny and Cher ultimate song. So me and Fred are writing lines and throwing them to Howard, and we're laughing. And at one point, I just kind of giggled and shook my head. And Howard said, "What?" I said, No. He says, "What? What's up?" I said, "It's too stupid. Way too stupid." He said, "Listen, nothing is too stupid. You tell me whatever goes on in your mind and let me edit. Because the song goes along and then there's what's called the B section of the song. You know, there's the regular body of the song, then there's the middle, and then there's another verse and it ends. And the B section was I got flowers in the spring, I got you to wear my ring. And when I'm sad, you're a clown. I could share my love around. And we were just getting to there and I started giggling. He said, "What is it?" And I said, "It's so stupid." And he said, "Tell me." And I told him, and it's the funniest line in the song. Fred singing as Rob Camilletti. And he goes, I see London, I see France, I saw Cher in her underpants. Oh man, we fell down. He said, "Don't ever hold back." It was the stupidest, most childish line. It's still one of the funniest lines from the Stern Show ever. Just classic. I never did meet that guy Rob. I always wanted to meet him. I heard he loved the song.
Oh, you and Fred have very similar minds, because there was at one time where you wrote something down and he wrote something down. It was spelled differently, but it was the same exact word.
No, that happened
Right?
5 or 10 times. But the one time we both wrote down the same word, spelled exactly the same. Howard was talking about West Hempstead.
Right.
Some kind of racist thing had happened in West Hempstead. And I wrote down Zimbabwe. And before I could put it down for Howard, Fred handed me a note and it said Zimbabwe. And I thought I was guessing at the spelling. I had no idea. And for years and years, I had the two of those notes taped to my cellar door because it just made me laugh every time. Fred is the building block of that show. He is so ridiculously brilliant, funny, fast.
Yeah.
I mean, you could start saying hello and Fred have something funny to say before you finish saying hello. And I've been singing his praises forever and ever and ever, you know.
Amen. You sure have. And I know that Sternak is also one of your faves, right?
That took me probably 2 years to talk Howard into doing that. I always thought Karnak on Johnny Carson
Carson, yeah.
was so funny. And I finally talked him into it. And we used to, and they would, it's so funny because people would say to me, you got to watch what you say. I think, I were going to my parents' house. People forget, like, for 15 years, 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, we weren't dirty. You couldn't be dirty. It was terrestrial radio. We danced around those rules.
Yes.
People don't realize it was a whole big deal, and Sternak, I'd make them as dirty as you could,
Right.
but you had to dance around the rules, which made it so fun, It's very challenging,
Yes, it really was. Same thing with what was it, Match Game, where it was Blank-a-Doodle-Doo.
Right.
Right?
Blank Willow, and those were all great,
But it's
so much fun.
You think about it, it's genius. It really is. How do you taptoe around, the censors?
They're just ridiculous, just so ridiculous,
So,
That's the one scene. That scene in the movie Private Parts is probably as close as that movie comes to anything that actually really happened, like on the show. That Match Game scene really happened very, very close to that. I mean, we did it a bunch of times, but him coming in and freaking out and Blank Willow, just funny.
this month, actually, Jackie, this month is actually 20 years, because you left in 2001, right? I think you left March 2001.
I guess I had my 20-year anniversary. Yeah, I always tell people I marched forth on March 4th.
This coming from a Valentine's Day baby.
Valentine's Day, 20 years. People come up and start talking to me like it was yesterday.
20 years.
Hey man, miss you on the show. Like, that was 20 years ago. Yeah.
I just thought about it today. I'm thinking, I think it's 20 years this month, which is really iconic when you think about it. But after you left Stern, you actually had your own satellite radio show called Jackie's Joke Hunt from 2006 to 2014. But a lot of people don't know that you've done other movies, you've done TV.
Yeah, nothing too earth-shattering, but I did a little bit. I did a movie where I made out with Florence Henderson, and I did a movie with Sean Young, and I did a movie called Potluck, which was so much fun. And I was on the TV show Leverage once, and I was on the show Hack once. And
did Searching for Bobby D, which is a Paul Borghese film. I had Paul on my show, and that was with William DeMeo and Chuck Zito.
Yeah, no, I've known all those guys for Jesus Christ. Yeah, we just did a film upstate called Almost Made, and it was Louis DeMayo wasn't in it, but Louis Veneria and Paul Borghese and, that whole cast of characters, we had so much fun. So much fun.
I'm not sure, but I
Paul,
think,
Paul Borghese, we had a Channel 9 show.
yes.
Howard Stern had a Channel 9 show in 1989 and 90. And Paul Borghese was the guy that used to get us they weren't strippers, but whatever they were, the pretty models that were the Snapple girls. Like for the Snapple commercials, Snapple had just become a beverage and they were advertising on the show. And Howard would, pour Snapple all over him. And we'd lick the Snapple off him. And then I would see Paul. Playing like a limo driver in a movie late at night. And I said, Paul, put me in a movie, goddammit. Put me in a movie. And then one day he called me up and said, hey, I got a role for you in a movie. And we all met at the Italian American Club. And it was the movie Potluck, which was, the whole world, Tommy Chong and Sylvia Miles and Frank Gorshin.
Yeah.
And all these people were in it. And then Paul wound up not being in it because at the same time he got the role of Yogi Berra.
Yes.
In the baseball film called 61, about the year that Roger Maris hit 61 home runs.
Yeah.
Paul and me go way, way, way back.
Yeah.
Way back.
Yeah, I have Paul on my show. He was wonderful. And you so almost made, and then are you also doing the Independence?
You mean that generically or as the name of a movie?
No, the movie.
Oh, I don't.
And then,
they must have lost my phone number.
okay, and what about, I don't know, there are a couple of other ones here. Massacre Academy and Saving Little Italy. Any of them ring a bell?
The Massacre one, yeah. Sometimes I just do one day and I do a couple lines and I don't even know what's what. It's so funny. I did Rules for Men, and I did. It was so funny. This one guy, Ken Del Vecchio, does all these movies, and I use the name. My character's name is always Dutch Holland, and I've been Dutch Holland in 4 of his films because I'm like, my ancestors are from Holland, so
Yes.
I'm Dutch Holland.
So listen, I hope one day we get to work together because I want to be funny with you, my friend.
And anytime, call me up.
I will. We're going to hang out. I can't wait to hang out because I've written very, very dirty jokes, but because I'm female, I shouldn't do dirty jokes.
Oh, stop with that. One minute you guys want to be equal, and the next minute I can't do that. I'll break a nail. Make up your mind.
My mother guilts me, and she's like, you can be funny without cursing, which I do. I'm very risque. I'm a little dirty, but I don't have to curse like a truck driver either.
No, you don't have to curse to be dirty, and you don't have to be dirty to be funny. But sometimes there's lots of jokes that I could take the edge off of, but it changes it. Like there's a joke that the old couple's in the living room and the wife says, let's go upstairs and have sex. And the husband says, I don't know if I could do both, which is very funny because he's old and feeble. But it's nowhere near as funny as the wife saying, let's go upstairs and fuck. That's funny. That's funny. That's not beaten to death a dirty word. That's funny because a little old lady's saying it. And if anybody has a problem with that, they can walk out in front of a bus and I'll watch them squish.
No, you're right. It has to do with the context. If you're just up there, F this.
No, that's not funny. And that's never been me ever.
No, I know.
It's so funny. I yell at people. I yell at my girlfriend for cursing. She's like, you have the most disgusting act in the world. I said, but that's got nothing to do with anything.
Yeah,
if I feed a lion a big piece of steak, that doesn't mean I'm going to throw it on my living room floor,
You and I hung out a few years ago before this pandemic at Brokerage, and then I hung out and I saw you at Governor's, and I love how you say, okay, we're going to start off easy, we're going to start, and they're just going to gradually get dirtier and dirtier, people. So I'm telling you now, you forewarn everyone, and it's hysterical, and I can't even catch my breath, from one into the next. I mean, what you
just
do,
fun. That's all.
First of all, I don't know how you remember all of them. I really don't. You're like a walking frigging catalog.
It's, what it is? That's all I know. You know, I use the same people that have seen me interviewed get mad because it's the same crap. But after a certain amount of time, you have your answers. And I tell people, if you leave Bayville and you drive to Manhattan, you pass all those different exits.
Right, right.
How do you know enough to pass all those exits?
Right.
Because they're on the way.
Right.
I have all these jokes. They're along the way. At any point, I can get off, tell a different joke, go down this street, turn around, get a cup of coffee, and come back. And I can either get back on the expressway where I got off. I can get back on much further up. I can stop when I get to the Crossline Expressway if I've already done my time because the people are laughing so hard. It's very, very simple, but that's all I know.
But I can listen to you tell them over and over and over again because A, they're funny, B, your delivery is hysterical, you're laughing, you're up there laughing and enjoying the joke with everyone else, which makes it even more endearing.
What
know
I
what I'm
really
saying?
love is people come up to me after the show and say, "You drive me crazy." They say, I'll be laughing. I'm already laughing at a joke you just told when I realize I've heard you tell that 10 times and I'm still laughing anyway, which is the finest of compliments, because it's just a show. It's just a participation. I don't want to make you laugh for my ego. I'll make you laugh because it makes you feel good, and you laughing makes me feel good. And it's a symbiotic relationship. It really is. So many comics, they're so funny and they're so talented and they're so sharp and so witty, but they leave out the part about making people laugh. People are like, oh, Jackie, all he does is go up there and make people laugh. Well, what do you think? Look at your job description, you asshole. My job is to make people laugh. That's what I do. All I've done for 40 years is I've had people say that's the hardest I've ever laughed for an hour in my entire life. You can't get a better compliment than that. You don't come to see me to learn anything about politics or learn how to shave your vagina or to learn how to shop for shoes. You hear a few filthy jokes and you go home and repeat some of them. That's all.
So listen, we only have a couple of minutes left. This goes so fast. I love to do part 2 with you. You come back anytime you want because I want to continue this conversation. I love you so much. So listen, here, just not to bring it down or anything, but I also, you got paid to break balls on the Stern Show.
Yeah, I did.
Look, you did a lot of drinking. There was a lot of drinking going on, and you left Stern under your terms, your circumstances, and everyone could read that in the book, and it's well documented. But what I want to know is what made you get sober and what keeps you sober? Because there's a lot of people out there that are struggling, and I really like to hear.
First of all, if anybody has any questions, you can email me a joke or ask me about a joke or anything. Email me at jokeland@aol.com, JOKELAND@aol.com, because a lot of people have questions about what you just asked me about. And people, there is no secret. The secret is that there is no secret. You can't help somebody get sober unless they want to. You can do whatever you want to do, and then you walk away. And what happened to me was I knew that I was drinking too much for decades. In 1972, like the second or third song I ever wrote was called 3 Days Rest, because I knew I was drinking way too much. I graduated college, me and my girlfriend broke up, and I was like, I'm drinking too much. And I said, and then after 3 days, I was freaking out. And I said, you know what? Maybe if I sit down and write a song, I'll feel so proud of myself that I'll go out and get drunk. So I wrote a song called 3 Days Rest about stopping drinking, and then went out and got drunk for a couple more decades. In the early 90s, I knew I really had to stop, and I wanted to get skinny to host the Rascals Comedy Hour. Yeah. So I went on a Nutrisystem, and I didn't drink for a year. And I was like, I wasn't quite, almost a year. And I said, well, there's nothing to this. Obviously, I'm fine. So then I had a light beer, and then I had a regular beer, and then I was drunk for another decade or whatever. But towards the middle of the 90s, towards the end, I don't know the extent of my problem. I didn't I always drank after. I never during my show. Rodney never during the show. Afterwards, never during the show. I mean, he broke that law decades later, but so I never got high until after a show. But I'd get plenty drunk, and I'd always drive. I'd drive home from Washington, D.C. or Baltimore or Boston late at night on Saturday after drinking and, after doing 2 shows and then getting drunk and then drinking all the way home. And I was always, man, I don't care if I kill myself, but I don't want to hurt anybody else. Like, what am I going to do? But I couldn't stop. Yeah. And I knew there was no way I was going to quit drinking while I was still on that show, because it was as much fun as it was a whirlwind. I didn't sleep for 15 years. It was a madhouse. Yeah. But then when I left the show, or the show left me, whatever you want to call it, all of a sudden I had way too much. I knew I had to quit drinking, but I knew I never would while I was on the show. And I didn't really quit the show I didn't leave the show to quit drinking, but all of a sudden I left the show. And all of a sudden I had so much free time. And then I realized I can't spend my life waiting for it to be 5 o'clock so I can start drinking. Right. And I realized the only way to cure that is to have it never be 5 o'clock.
Right.
So just one day I just pushed my beer mug away and turned over my coffee cup. And my wife at the time, Nancy, goes like, "What the hell's that about?" And I said, "I'm done." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm done. I'm done drinking." And that was it. Wow. And people say, "Well, then you didn't have a problem. If you didn't have to go to AA and you didn't have withdrawals, all right. It's not a badge of courage. Maybe I didn't have a problem. So then what's the argument? Who cares?"
Yeah.
But it's so weird. Before I stopped drinking, if you had told me, I'm coming up on 20 years on Cinco de Mayo, or however you say it. That's going to be 20 years sober. And if before I quit, if you had told me I wasn't going to drink for 20 days, I would have told you were crazy. But then I just got it in my head, and I'm a stubborn asshole, and I just said, I'm not going to. And it was like, and then I just didn't, and I didn't, and I didn't, and I just didn't. And
I am so happy you did. We're out of time. We have to go. I want you back because I want to keep talking to you. We'll set something up, Jackie. Jackie, stay where you are. Everyone else, I want to thank you so much for supporting Tea Time and watching the show. Like it, share it. And Jackie, stay right there. Everyone else, have a great week. Okay, see you next week. Ciao, everybody.